Hey everybody, how you guys doing this evening? Hopefully you guys are doing well. I posted that picture of the Sporlan. That's their thing they've been posting on social media. They're trying to give away a bunch of these beer steins, of course, that I have apple juice in. It's to celebrate their 85th anniversary. What you want to do, if I've said it on social media and stuff too, but what you want to do is tag Sporlan, whether it be on Twitter or on Facebook with the hashtag Sporlan85. So the pound sign Sporlan85, and then just take a picture of any Sporlan products. They prefer more like older memorabilia and stuff like that. But yeah, do it. You get entered into a contest to win one of those beer mugs that they had sent me a while back. So pretty cool. It's super easy, and I think they give away a couple a week or something like that. Yeah, if you go to Sporlan's social media, they'll explain to you, all the details and stuff like that. It'll have all the rules. I'm pretty sure it only applies to the United States. I don't think they're going to be shipping internationally for those of you that are watching in other countries. Unfortunately, that's just one of the things and how it goes because the shipping and all that good stuff. So, in doing a giveaway that I did a long time ago, I realized something that it's like a nightmare if you want to do a giveaway and ship internationally because like other countries, hey, Mr. Johnny Boy, thanks very much, man. Other countries, like they do, if you do like a giveaway, some of those countries consider that gambling. It's weird. It's so weird. And there's like all kinds of trade laws and different things. So I had done a giveaway a long time ago for a Sporlan BQ kit. It was one of the first things that I did when Sporlan became a sponsor of mine. And man, the stress about giving that thing away and hoping that, because I never specified in the very beginning that it was only going to be for the United States, and it was just like a mess. But anyways, yeah, it's such a trip, when you start doing these streams and everything, you start to realize all the rules and different things that you have to follow. And, when you start filming YouTube videos and stuff too, it's a trip figuring out, music playing in the background. And it's like a whole mess trying to film videos. I have a hard drive full of videos that I can't show because there was, audio in the background. There was music playing or something like that. And I have to basically narrate over the videos, and it's just a mess. Like, man, but anyways, it is what it is. Hello to everybody that's coming in. How are you guys doing this evening? Hopefully you guys are all doing well. Fluke196, thanks so very much. You guys, the super chats, they're awesome, man. I'm so blown away that you guys take your own money, and that's awesome. Thank you guys very much. I'm super humbled by that. Albert Rodriguez, you asked me a question. No, unfortunately, I do not do any boiler work. I am refrigeration, air conditioning, exhaust fans. I do the heaters and the air conditioning units, but I don't do any hot side work, and I don't do any hydronic work as far as boilers and stuff like that goes. So I'm specifically refrigeration and air conditioning. That's another thing too. It's very interesting because I talked to some guys, all over the country. I get comments and stuff like that from people all around the world, but I talked to gentlemen all around the country, and they talk about, the way that they do things in their companies. And I do find it very interesting that for those of you that are in Texas, maybe you guys can verify this, but there's service companies that strictly do refrigeration and no air conditioning work. And that's very bizarre for me because here I do air conditioning and refrigeration, but I don't do hot side work, which is, the next step for me. And there's a few companies that do hot side work, but for the most part, hot side is usually a different company. And that the hot side is like fryers and grills and cooking appliances. The only thing I'll work on like, patio heaters, those infrared radiant heaters or whatever. I'll do those, but that's about the farthest I go into that kind of stuff. And then obviously I'll fix, gas fired and heaters inside a RTU unit or something like that. But very interesting. So hello to everybody that's coming in. How you guys doing? I'm doing good. Thank you. Hey, Isaiah, I see you there, bud. Got a couple things I want to cover. And then obviously, as usual, I want to get to some of your guys' chats, but something, that I wanted to talk about, and it was a really good suggestion. And it was, hang on just one sec. I'm just looking at the chat here real quick. And it was a suggestion by HVACR Vlogger, which is Ernesto. He also has a YouTube channel, so I definitely check that out, guys. If I had your link here, bud, I would post it, but I don't. But you'll see him. He'll post in here. Just click on his name, and then you can go to his channel from there. Ernesto, just post a comment of anything right now. And then that way, and hey, Rick's in here too. Rick started posting videos again too with HVACR Survival. There's all kinds of good YouTubers in here, guys. So I wanted to talk about YouTube in general and social media. Okay, so my outlook is a little different than everybody's. So, when I started making these videos, I originally posted these videos for my own employees. And so if you notice in my very early videos, and even still to this day, I tend to talk to my employees, and maybe you guys can see that in the way that I'm talking in the video. Like, this is how we want to do it. This is what we're going on. It's not that I'm telling you guys how to do your jobs. It's that you got to remember, first and foremost, these videos are from my employees. And then, lately I've been kind of tailoring more towards you guys than my employees, and my employees understand that I explained it to them, But, I started making these as a training aid, and I never really planned on making these videos public, okay? It was more or less, just posting these videos with, this is an interesting thing that I ran into, and I wanted my guys to see it. Because before that, what we would do is we meet at our particular shop. Everybody meets at the office every day. First thing in the morning, you start out at the office. Luckily, everybody lives close to the office. So everybody meets at the office, and then we just kind of, divvy out the calls and go from there. But we would find ourselves, I would be discussing, hey, guys, I ran into this really interesting call, and I'd be describing it to them. And then quickly, I kind of realized, hey, I could post a little video on my phone, and then I posted them to YouTube and made them unlisted. So unlisted means that I can share them via email, but they couldn't see them to the general public. And so I would share so the first 3 videos that I posted on my channel were unlisted videos at first, and then I just showed them to my guys, and then I quickly made them public. And when I made them public, the channel just did what it did, and just kind of blows my mind. But I am not, especially back then, and that was about 2 years ago, year and a half ago, I did not believe in using YouTube videos for learning how to do what we're doing. I honestly still to this day believe in a proper apprenticeship working for a company. Now, I don't necessarily mean a union apprenticeship, even though I do agree that the union in the past has given great education. But I believe that you need to learn via getting your hands on things and working with someone and being taught properly. But my opinion on that has kind of changed in the way that people have been viewing my videos, and it's very interesting, okay? So I didn't agree with people watching YouTube videos, and to an extent, I still don't agree with them, to learn how to work in this this trade, basically, okay? I still think you need to go to trade school. I still think you need to get a proper apprenticeship, but then I think these videos are a great aid to that, okay? But you guys will probably notice in my videos, I don't show the very beginning, the whole process all the way through. I don't show you how to set my acetylene and my oxygen on my torches and different things like that. I do not want to be a DIY channel, but I do agree that from the way that people have been responding, that I understand that the younger generation needs these videos, okay? That's just the way that they're going to learn. I still think that they're learning in the field too, but it's very interesting to me because I came up in a time before YouTube and before social media in general. The first social media that I had was MySpace, and I thought MySpace was really cool because you can put music on your... Anyways, I'm going off on a tangent, but that was old school. But it's just very interesting the way that things are going. I never really I couldn't foresee how social media is changing our trade for the better. There's also some trolls on social media, so yes, it does cause problems. But these Facebook groups, guys, they are really cool because, I still agree that you need to talk to your office, you need to talk to your service manager when you need help. But it's always great, too, to be able to go onto Facebook in one of the cool groups or whatever, that's out there and say, hey, guys, I have this problem. This is what I'm running into. What do you guys think? And you get thousands of people that are willing to help. What a trip, right? What kind of resources you guys have nowadays. It's awesome. And for those guys that are older than me, I'm 36. For the guys that are older than me that don't understand social media and different things, man, they need to get on the bandwagon because even they can still learn from this stuff. There's tons of great guys out there making YouTube videos that, show how to do things. Now, I will say there's also some really bad YouTubers also, okay? You guys need to make that decision. I stumbled across a channel recently that has 3,000 some odd subscribers, and I'm watching their videos, and I will not mention whose channel that is. It's not one of the really popular channels, but I'm still blown away with the videos that this person is making because what they're showing is completely incorrect, okay? And that's not the proper way. And this is a younger person, and, you know, I'm a little worried. So we do need to be careful in what we are watching on YouTube, what we're believing. You can't just believe it because it's written on social media or because it's on YouTube. So be cautious about that stuff. But I do agree that this is a great, valuable resource. And I think that, you know, this is only going to get better. Where I see the future going with this trade, and I'm still waiting for the moment for this to happen, it's getting better and better with the technical support. But when it's going to be amazing is when we have some kind of glasses that have a amazing camera in them that can stream live. That's when it's going to be awesome. Right now, there's all kinds of different glasses out there that have cameras in them, but nothing is of high quality because I've looked into it or affordable. But even still, the ones that are out there right now are very, very expensive, such as like Google Glass, like that kind of concept. Where that's really going to help is that's going to be able to put, you know, a more experienced tech on the other end, preferably not sitting in the office, but maybe sitting in the office and being able, you know, a younger guy comes up and says, hey, this is what we're running into, you know, and then he can turn on his glasses and show the other person on the other end. Right now, we have the ability to do that with our phones. And even at my company, we do that. We all have Samsung Galaxy phones, and everybody has the ability of using the Samsung whatever software inside of our phones to go live on their, you know, so if someone just calls me and they say, hey, I'm looking at this and it doesn't quite sound right, I'll tell them, hey, just turn your camera on, and they click a button on their phone and then it goes live and then it comes across to my phone and then they can show me. But the downside to that is they still have to hold their phone. So it would be awesome when we get to the point that we can have some sort of glasses to be able to interact and hear. So the future's there. It's almost here. I know it is. I wouldn't be surprised in the next year or so if that technology doesn't come out, but we got to wait for it to become, you know, relatively inexpensive because nobody wants to pay $1,000 for a set of glasses right now. But that is very interesting where this trade's going and how social media is really helping it. You know, if you get into some of these good groups, you know, you got to stay out of some of the bad ones. There's a lot of nonsense on some of those Facebook pages too, but there's some really good ones. So forgive me, guys. I've kind of been ignoring the chat. So if you guys have posted questions, I'm not really going to scroll back up. Post them again. Remember, if you guys are going to put questions, put them in caps lock, okay? I do not have a huge agenda to talk about today, so I definitely am going to rely on your guys' questions. So definitely put them in there, and I'll see what I can do. So I'm just going to kind of scroll through here. And let's see. Exactly. Yeah. And, you know, all right. So, I want to address something with my video, that I uploaded, the most recent video about the carrier unit with the plugged up metering device. Okay. The plugged up metering device is like an Accurator style metering device. I don't know if that's quite what Carrier calls it, but it's their fixed orifice metering device. It has about 8 circuits on it, and it has a small piston inside of there. So I diagnosed that the unit had a plugged up metering device. The coil was halfway frozen up. It was either going to be a low charge or a metering device issue. And you could actually see on the unit that we had extremely high subcooling. So it kind of indicated that someone possibly had overcharged the unit, which is very common on those. Sometimes people think like, hey, my suction pressure keeps going lower. Let me add some more gas. And the subcooling just climbs. You know, there is methods that people have tried to go ahead and clear those metering devices. And what you can do is you can remove all the refrigerant out of the system. There's a couple videos on there on YouTube about it. You can just look up clearing a Carrier fixed orifice metering device. I believe Ulysses Palacios has one on the Train unit because Train also uses that fixed orifice. And then also Hack Free HVAC has one too on cleaning them on the Carrier units. So if you want to try to clear them with nitrogen and a torch, what you can do is remove the refrigerant, backflow the nitrogen. So that means push the nitrogen through the suction side and let it come out the liquid side. Okay. And what you can do is try to blow the crap out of the liquid line. So you can pressurize the system up to a really high pressure, usually about 200 PSI. You don't want to go over the evaporator pressure limit, whatever that is. So 150, 200 PSI, whatever the maximum, pressure is on the evaporator. And then what you can try to do is take like a MAP gas torch, or you can use your brazing torch. You got to be very careful, and you can try to heat up the metering device. And the theory behind that is if there's some kind of a wax buildup or something like that, maybe you're going to melt it to where the nitrogen can push that, you know, wax or whatever it is out of there. In my case, I actually tried that. I didn't get it on video, but it didn't work. So, I've had not very good luck trying that with the carrier units, trying to clear those metering devices. In my opinion, once you have a plugged up metering device, for the most part, it usually means your oil's contaminated somehow, and or someone didn't braze with nitrogen and they really, really did a bad job. But I'm going to tell you guys something too, the whole brazing with nitrogen thing. I believe in brazing with nitrogen. It's very important, but I will say that for the first 10 years of my career, probably, 13 years of my career, I never used nitrogen with brazing. Now, was it correct? No, but I was never taught to do so, okay? And, I've mentioned many times before, I was taught old school methods where, beer can cold and all those different things. And, I soon, after some time, kind of learned that those weren't quite the right ways, and I started doing some reading myself, and that's when I started realizing, hey, we need to use a micron gauge. Hey, we need to braze with nitrogen, those kind of things. So I will say that, I agree that brazing with nitrogen is very important, but I also agree that it's not as quite as extreme as some people make it to be. I still, to this day, try to braze with nitrogen whenever possible, but there's instances where I don't. And I usually don't plug up metering devices. I don't ruin expansion valves. I don't ruin dryers, okay? I try to do it as much as possible, but there's times that I don't, okay? I am not a perfect technician. I make mistakes just like everybody else. In fact, most of my videos are, examples of the mistakes that I've made, and I may be teaching you guys or, bringing up something that's a very important lesson to be learned, and it's usually from a past experience of me messing something up, okay? So anyways, I tried to clear that metering device. It didn't really help, so I'm recommending to the customer, I give them a quote basically to replace the fixed orifice metering header, the whole header itself. And they kind of held off on the quote for now, just because we're going into the fall and they're not too concerned about the air conditioning unit right now. But they will in the next month or two. They're going to end up calling me back because, it's not going to get super cold out here in Southern California, and we still are going to rely on the air conditioning unit. And that unit's just going to ice up again, and it's just going to start leaking water down into the building, and, they'll call me back out. So, I just kind of play the game. That's just how you have to go when you're working in chain restaurants. So let's see what I'm missing in here. Yeah, HVAC rookie, beer can cold was what you were taught in school. I mean, I was taught a lot of that stuff too. So, yeah, and some Ernesto, HVACR vlogger, says there's times that he doesn't use nitrogen too. I really, really think that you need to try to use it as much as possible, but sometimes it's not practical. And I will tell you one instance where I don't ever use nitrogen is when I'm working on cap tube systems. Okay, because what you're going to find on a capillary tube system is when you're trying to push nitrogen through the system, there's going to be a large pressure drop, and there's going to be a pressure buildup on the inlet side of the capillary tube. So you're going to get a high pressure on one side. So if you're trying to braze a dryer or something like that, and you're trying to pressurize that system with nitrogen and flow, even just flowing the tiniest bit will still build a pressure drop. So whenever I'm working on capillary tube, like reach-in coolers and stuff, I do not use nitrogen because I find it to be problematic. My personal opinion. There's no scientific explanation behind that. That's just my opinion on that. All right, let's see what else we going on here. Okay. Okay, so Just Russ asked me, and that's another good question too, about converting that system to an expansion valve. And that is something that I would consider doing. Unfortunately, I've reached out to my carrier rep, my carrier distributor, and they've told me that Carrier does not offer an expansion valve retrofit kit. So if I was to try to retrofit to an expansion valve, I would have to do all the math myself. I've considered contacting Sportland because I do have contacts there to talk to them, but I haven't gone that route yet. I know that if you're working on a Train unit, Train does have a TXV retrofit kit for their fixed orifice metering devices for some of their units, but unfortunately, my research has shown me that Carrier does not. So I would consider doing an expansion valve, and I would love to do it, but I just would have to do all the math, and that's just not something that I've done as of this moment yet. So we'll see. Maybe I will. All right, let's see what else I'm missing here. Chris Keith has a good question. So let's see okay. How do I unfreeze all of those joints at the same time? So that's a really good question. Chris Keith had asked that. So I'm assuming you mean unbraze, basically. So when you're changing those fixed orifice metering devices, what you're actually going to do, it comes as a complete header. I wish I had a picture that I can show you. But the entire header, so that means the main pipe, so basically there's going to be about a 5/8 inch pipe running up and down. That's the header. 716 Appliance Guy. Thank you very much, man. I really appreciate that super chat. So there's a main header, and then off of that are multiple 3/8" lines, and there's a metering device in those 3/8" lines. So when you go to change that fixed orifice metering device, there's a couple different ways you can do it. The easiest way, the best way to do it, but it's not always practical, is to go ahead and remove the evaporator. And in order to remove the evaporator, what I would typically do is go in there with a set of 10 snips and cut all the way up against the header, because the new piece is going to come, with the metering devices and about a 2-inch, 3/8" pipe, basically, that you would be able to solder or braze back onto the evaporator. So in a perfect world, I would cut all those with a 10 snips, go down the line, and then take the whole evaporator out, and then cut them again if you need to with 10 snips, and get in there with some tubing cutters. So it's not a perfect little situation. It is rather difficult, to get in there. Sometimes you can't remove the evaporator, so you got to kind of do it in place. So you'll definitely have to remove the top to the unit and kind of climb in there. But yeah, so you're going to try to cut most of it out with 10 snips before, and then just use the new piece as a fixed assembly. You can either swage the new piece, or you can put couplings on there. So, all right, let's see what else we got. Let's see. I don't know what you're saying there, Ernesto. You hope the YouTube account you were talking about is not. I don't know what that means. I don't know if you're talking to someone else. So, just continue. Oh, okay. So I covered that. Ryan Hamilton, thank you very much. I really appreciate that, bud. Thanks for the super chat. So Zach Chiro, I'm hoping I'm saying your name correctly. I think the X would probably be silent. You said, have I heard Carrier has declared that R454 will be their new refrigerant as of 2023, and York also? So yeah, I have heard that there is a new refrigerant coming out, and I believe I have heard that Carrier and York have talked about it. I don't remember if it was the same one. I'm going to take your word for it that it was. I believe that it will be. Yeah, it's the R410A replacement. I have heard that. I've read some press releases. I believe Honeywell, it's one of the Solstice refrigerants, isn't it? I think Honeywell makes it. So yeah, I have read about that. It's interesting. Everything's changing. All the new refrigerants are going to be replaced. All the 400 series refrigerants are going away. It's a trip, This kind of segues, curious HVAC guy. I'm going to address that in just a minute here, bud. Don't let me forget. Try to post it again in a minute if I don't answer that. And, Nando530, do I ever plan on doing some kind of HVAC training class? I don't know if I'd be qualified to do like a HVAC training class. I am doing, I am going to be at Brian Orr's seminar in Florida a couple days before the AHR Expo. He's going to be doing a big training seminar where he's going to have like all kinds of super smart people, much smarter than I, doing like discussions and different things. And that's with HVAC school. I will be at that. But as far as a training class myself, I don't know, man. I really don't know that I would really do a training class. So I want to segue into, I'm going to answer your question there, Bill, first. So Curious HVAC guy asks, what sort of equipment do I see balance port TXVs in? So typically you're going to see a balance port TXV on anything that has multiple circuits, essentially, okay? That's what you're mostly going to see a balance port on. So if it has multiple circuits going to the evaporator, feeder lines going to it, if it's not just one 3/8 or half-inch line going to it, then you typically are going to see a balance port on there. So if I was doing one of those Carrier units, yes, it would be a balance port expansion valve, for sure. All right. Okay. The next question that thing that I want to talk into real quick. Oh yeah, definitely Ernesto HVACR Vlogo. Yeah. So R22. I had an interesting question on YouTube. Someone had posted a comment, and guys, there's so much misinformation out there, and I'm going to blame a lot of the supply houses on this misinformation. Okay. I'm not blaming every supply house, but there's a lot of supply houses out there that are giving people the improper information. Unfortunately, in our trade, we tend to lean on the supply houses for, technical information and industry information. Okay. You guys need to do the research yourself. You need to do some digging and figure out what's true and what's not true. Okay, so as of 2020, and this is a very common belief, is that R22 is going to be illegal. That is not completely inaccurate, but I'm just going to say it's not true. Okay, so R22 is going to be illegal to import and or manufacture in the United States anymore. Okay, as of 2020. But here's the cool thing. It's not going to be illegal to use R22. Okay, it's not going to be illegal to put new R22 in a existing air conditioning unit to retrofit, to continue to use R22 is not against the law. There is stockpiles of R22, tons and tons of still new R22 and reclaimed and recleaned refrigerant that manufacturers have stockpiled. We will have plenty of R22 for the next coming years, okay? Yes, the price might go up a little bit, but what's interesting, about 3-4 years ago, the price of R22 went up to $500-$600 a jug for a 30-pound jug. Guys, it's almost half that right now. It's dropped way down. I think it might have even gone above $600. It's gone way down right now, okay? R22 is not going to be illegal to use. The question that I had was on my particular unit, one of the units that I had fixed it, or maybe I topped off the charge or something, the person was asking me, why don't you go ahead and talk that customer into replacing that unit since R22 is illegal? And that is not true. R22 is not illegal. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there pushing that, and that is not the truth. Now, is it in the customer's best interest to consider replacing the unit? Sure. Okay. But unfortunately, that's not always practical. Okay. People can't always just go and replace their units. So let's make it completely clear right now. R22 is not going to be illegal. Okay. It's only going to be illegal to import into the United States and or manufacture new refrigerant within the United States. That's it. Okay. So we can still use it. I'm still going to use it. I still use it to this day. Currently right now, I do not use any R22 replacements unless a customer comes to me and says, hey, I want to use them. I'm still using R22 right now. I'm just going to throw out a name right now. One of the more popular R22 replacements is Blue On, I think. I've never used it. I have nothing bad to say about them. I'm not going to talk trash, but I was at a supply house and they had the price of Blue On the board, and it was significantly more expensive than a brand new drum of R22 right now. So I'm not using any of those R22 replacements. With that being said, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying that I'll never use an R22 replacement. Just at this moment in time, I've chosen not to use them. So I will say, if anybody has any questions about the new refrigerant restrictions, any of the new stuff that's coming out, I have a contact at Honeywell. It's Ralph. I don't know if he's in here today. I haven't seen him yet, but he's a great resource. Ralph Vergara at Honeywell. And he's come in here many times. He's always supporting this stream. I'm going to put his email in the chat right now. You guys can feel free to contact Ralph with any refrigerant related questions you have. He can, give you ideas on anything that Honeywell manufactures. He will even send you documentation showing the laws and different restrictions and different things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and post his email in here right now. Right there. Feel free to take that email down and send Ralph any of your questions that you have. He's a really cool guy and he usually gets back with you really quick. Okay. Let's see what else. I'm going to see what I'm missing here. So HVAC. Also, is there anything besides cutting, brazing it into the system? I'm going to go back up to your question here, HVAC Rookie. Okay, if I do a changeover piston to TXV, how does it change the charge? That's a very good question, HVAC Rookie. So if I was to go ahead and remove the fixed orifice metering devices and or the actuator header, you would change the way that you charge that system. You would charge it by subcooling. So you wouldn't have Carrier giving you documentation saying this is how you should charge the unit. But what you're going to do is you're typically going to rely on your, 10 degrees subcooling or something like that coming back. I would just research, find out, and basically just charge via subcooling now if you're going to put the TXV in there. I am going to lean on, I'm a very big fan of using Measure Quick. So I'm going to lean on Measure Quick and, kind of input all my numbers into there, and it's going to help you to properly charge that unit. Okay. So yeah, it definitely would affect the refrigerant charge. I would think that you would still I would start with about 80% of the charge and then kind of go from there. So I would basically weigh in 80% of the charge, turn the system on, let it stabilize out, check the vitals, and then adjust the charge from that point forward is what I would typically do. So, okay, let's see what we got going on. What else? Oh, wait, it dropped because the supply house is flooded. Yes, they did. So, okay, so I'm going to go down here, guys. If I'm missing your questions, please put them back in the chat again. Okay. So HVAC Rookie, you asked about 421A. Personally, I don't use any alternative refrigerants right now. If I had to make a decision, like if someone said you need to use one today, I would probably use 407C, but I would have to do an oil change if the system had mineral oil. I'm not a fan of mixing oils, doing any of that funky stuff. Other people can do it. I'm not judging you guys for doing so, but if I was going to do a 407C retrofit, I would completely change the oil in the system and obviously change as many of the gaskets and O-rings and seals as you can. So, Ernesto, you said you were asked how come you carry so much refrigerant jugs. You explained it's because you do so many types of units. Since we work in a lot of the same equipment, how many do I carry? So how many refrigerant jugs do I carry? I actually don't carry that many. I carry a jug of R448A, which is the new 404A replacement. I also carry a jug of 404A. I carry 410A, 134A, and R22. Yep, and that's it. So I don't carry any of the R12 replacements. I do have some 409A at the shop, but I don't use that stuff anymore. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. Okay, I don't carry any of the alternatives, and I usually have 2 or 3 recovery cylinders, typically 2 recovery cylinders in my truck. Usually carry like 1 or 2, depending on, like if it's summertime, I usually carry 2 of the 410s and 2 of the 22s. Sometimes I might have 2 404As. It just depends on how much room I have in my tank racks and stuff. So, HVAC rookie. So do I need to completely remove the header fixed to the TXV? Yeah, you would completely remove the header because the header still has the metering devices, the fixed orifice metering devices. So you'd have to, if you were to retrofit to a TXV, you'd have to completely size the distribution tubes properly. They need to be the right length and the right inside diameter. Then you need to put a proper distributor on the expansion valve. And then you need to put the proper expansion valve in, basically. So yeah, you would have to remove the header completely and then braze the distribution lines directly into the evaporator coil. You typically want them to insert into the evaporator coil about 4 to 5 inches and then braze them shut, basically. So let's see what else. I'm looking at my thing right now. Okay. Kenny Edwards, unfortunately, bud, I would not be the best person to explain unloaders. I don't work on systems with unloaders very much. Essentially, it's a capacity control. It helps you to stage down a compressor, basically, but I do not know much about setting them and what pressures to set them at, so I'm not really going to go into that one too much. So I apologize, bud. So Blueward 1322, is there any reason to find insulation on the liquid line at the compressor, specifically on a small 1-ton RV? Oh, so yeah, if it's not the end of the world to put insulation on a liquid line. A lot of times we will put insulation. So you specifically said on an RV, okay? So I'm assuming that you mean on the liquid line. So typically, if you have something that is sitting in the direct sunlight, like specifically on the roof of an RV, it would not be unheard of to put insulation on the liquid line, okay? Because essentially, you don't want that liquid line getting any hotter than it needs to, okay? You want that liquid line to be as cool as possible, basically. So yeah, sometimes we will put insulation on them, especially if you're running through an extremely hot attic. It is possible and feasible that someone would put insulation on there. So if you have something sitting on the top of an RV, yeah, I wouldn't be completely blown away to see insulation on a liquid line. Now, do I install systems with insulation on the liquid line? No, I've never ran into an instance where I needed to, but I have read some information on it, and I do agree that it is a good idea if you're working in a weird situation where the ambient air or the sunlight or something like that might increase the temperature of the liquid line. Have I ever... Dean Mohammed, thank you very much, man. I really appreciate for that super chat. That was really cool. Is there any... let me see. Should you have separate hoses for R22 and 410A? Jason Albert. Okay, so here's the deal. Refrigerant hoses. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I do not separate my refrigerant hoses, okay? I do not have a different set of hoses for 410 and a different set of hoses for R22. No. Okay, it's not practical for me. I work on too many different refrigerants. I can't carry a separate set of gauges. Is there some truth that you could have some oil contamination? Yes, there is. Oil contamination is not as severe as people have made it out to be. Okay, when polyester oil became popular in the mid-90s, when it was coming out, there was a lot of fear and misinformation out there via the supply houses saying that you can't mix any POE and mineral oil, it's not the end of the world. Now, it's not perfect. No. In a perfect world, if money was not an issue, it would be best if you had a separate set of gauges for every refrigerant and every different oil, but that's not very practical, okay? So don't stress about it. You don't need to have that many different sets of gauges. I carry basically one main set of gauges, and that's all that I use, okay? Just make sure that you purge your hoses. If you find a massive amount of oil contamination, then blow them out with some nitrogen, but don't sweat it. It's not the end of the world. Let's see what else. What should a residential AC tech study up on before trying to get into refrigeration in Southern California? Anthony asked that question. Okay, you need to understand refrigeration, period. Okay, now I'm not saying that you need to understand every single component in a refrigeration system, but if you understand how a compressor works, if you understand how the condenser rejects the heat and how the evaporator absorbs the heat, that's refrigeration, even though it's with high temp on an air conditioning system, okay? If you understand the basic principles of refrigeration, the expansion valve meters the refrigerant, the evaporator, absorbs the heat, and then the whole cycle repeats, you're going to be okay. The refrigeration difference is going to be basically there's some different controls involved and different temperatures. One thing that I would suggest if you're going towards the refrigeration side, but even in the air conditioning side too, we need to get away from talking about pressures and more so looking at saturation temperatures. If you're going to be getting into refrigeration, you also need to understand the refrigerant glide. That's the difference between the dew point and the bubble point. That's, so you need to understand as we get into these new alternative refrigerants, these replacements, R448A, which is the R404A replacement. It's one of the many, but it's the more popular one, has a huge refrigerant glide. That changes things. We need to start talking about not just evaporator temp. We need to talk about the midpoint, okay? That's the middle of the dew point and the bubble point, basically, on your temperature chart. So there's all kinds of different stuff that you do need to research, but you need to have some kind of a background in electrical. You need to understand basic electrical skills. Once you have a basic electrical and basic, understanding of the refrigeration cycle, yeah, sure, it's a good idea. Go ahead and move on into the refrigeration side. Move to a refrigeration company, but be honest and upfront with them and let them know that you do not completely understand how commercial refrigeration, whether it be light or heavy industrial, works. And, they'll train you and move you on up. But if you have a basic understanding of the refrigeration cycle and a basic understanding of electrical, you can learn a lot. I would highly suggest that you look into a book called Commercial Refrigeration for Air Conditioning Technicians by Dick Wirz. That's DICKWIRZ. Look that book up. It will greatly, greatly help you. Okay. It's basically a book to teach an air conditioning technician refrigeration. So it basically covers the different controls and different components that a refrigeration system might use that you wouldn't see necessarily in an air conditioning system. Okay. Hopefully that answers your questions. If I don't answer any of your guys' questions, feel free to send me an email, hvacrvideos@gmail.com. Okay. I don't know if the Nightbot has completely started posting. I've got a new movie in the chat, so it should keep an eye out for the Nightbot, guys. There's a new movie quotes that are going to be posted in there. Let's see if you guys can get that one. This one might be a pretty easy movie, so it should post here in just a few minutes. I think I had it set for like a 28-minute timer or something like that. Mel 904, any recommendations for records for refrigerant handling? That is something that I probably don't do enough of. There's some weird technicalities about how we're supposed to record and save logs of our refrigerant handling stuff. I will say that there is an app out there, and unfortunately, I cannot remember the name of the app. Gosh, I will try to think of it maybe on the next live stream. There's an app that completely handles all the refrigerant record keeping and everything like that, guys. Jason Orsbut, I believe that's how you pronounce your name. He's with ESCO. I believe he had something to do with the app, and I cannot remember the name of it for the life of me right now. But I'll do some research and maybe try to bring it up again. It might help some of those that want to try to keep track of all that stuff. Yeah, guys, if you have questions, please try to keep them in caps lock so that way we can make sure we get them. Okay, so is it ever possible to change oil on a compressor, Mr. Johnny Boy? Yes, it is. Okay, it is not quite as easy as you would think, though. To change the oil on a scroll, like on a small air conditioning scroll compressor, what you would HVAC rookie. Thanks very much, man, for that super chat. That was really awesome of you. So to change an oil on a scroll compressor or even just like a hermetic pot compressor, If it doesn't have an oil port on it, what you're going to need to do is basically tip over the compressor, pour the oil out, put the compressor back in. In order to do that, you're going to have to unbraze the fittings. It sounds like a pretty big process, right? Sometimes it might even be more economical for you to go ahead and replace the compressor if you're going to go that route. That's why I'm not a huge fan of these alternative refrigerants. Now, I have heard some people saying just to pour some polyester oil in there and call it a day. I've heard people say that it works. For me personally, I'm not going to do that. If we work on some of our bigger refrigeration compressors, we actually have oil ports on there, so you can just slightly pump the system down, keep the suction side under pressure, put your gauge on or your hose on the oil port and drain the oil out of the system. That's the easy ones. And if you have a semi-hermetic compressor, those are super easy because you can they have an oil port or sometimes you can put a little mechanism in there to pull the oil out too. So, but yeah, the easiest way, if it doesn't have an oil port, is just tip the compressor over and pour it out. So, which can be kind of difficult. So, yes. Okay. So do I use the Copeland mobile app? Has it ever given me the wrong resistance reading line to line for a compressor? I don't know that I've ever seen it give me the wrong resistance reading, but I'm not going to say, it's an app, so there's always room for error inside there. But yes, I use the Copeland mobile app very often. It's a great app and I really, really recommend it. I'd be very interested, Z, if you can send me an email in your instance where it gave you the wrong resistance numbers, because I can contact Copeland. You can do it yourself too, but send me an email with the specs, with the model number, and tell me what you found. I'd be very interested to read about that. So my email is hvacrvideos@gmail.com. So, all right. Let's see. Can I share the link for the book? Yeah, I can try to do that here. So hold on just one second and let me try to pull that up. Let's see if I can pull that up. Actually, there's a link inside my the show notes of this video, guys. There'll be a link inside the show notes of the video. So when the video posts on YouTube, right after the stream's done, go to the show notes of the video, and there's going to be a affiliate link for the Commercial Refrigeration for Air Conditioning Technicians book. And actually, I'll just grab it and show it to you too. All right, so this is the book. This is the newest version. I believe that they might be working on another one right now, but it's called Commercial Refrigeration for Air Conditioning Technicians. It's published by Cengage. Great, great book. It's a couple $100, but it's definitely worth it. I wouldn't bat at at one of these things. It's a great, great book. I had actually given one of those away a while back. Maybe I'll look into doing that again. I'll see if I can come up with a copy of that book, and maybe we can do a giveaway on one of those. So, all right, let's see what else I got in here. So, suction dryers. How long do you leave them on after the first change out? HVAC rookie. Hey, Bill, curious HVAC guy. I want to talk about the conversation that we had about your video. I want to kind of address that a little bit too, so don't let me forget that. Okay, bud? So HVAC rookie, suction dryers. How long do I leave them on after the first change out? So I'm going to be honest with you, there's nothing wrong with leaving a suction dryer in the system permanently, so long as it doesn't have a major pressure drop across the suction dryer, okay? The biggest thing is the pressure drop, okay? And what that can do is that can affect oil return going back to the compressor. If you don't have anything more than like a 2 PSI pressure drop, 1 PSI pressure drop, you're good to go, okay? But my important thing is that you need to accurately size the suction dryer, because oftentimes if you have a very, very bad burnout, you can create a problem. So I have brand new systems, refrigeration systems. It's very common to see a refrigeration system that comes from the factory with a suction line filter dryer on it. Okay, there's also a suction line filter, so keep in mind there's a difference, but suction line filter dryer is more dense and does some more filtering and has moisture removing capabilities. So I've left them in the system permanently so long as it doesn't have a pressure drop across the dryer. Now, you want to monitor a system. In a perfect world, you want to go back multiple times, checking the pressure drop every couple weeks. As the pressure drop increases, obviously remove the dryer, put a new one in. The moment that you stop seeing pressure drops, I guess that would be a time if you wanted to go ahead and remove it, you could, but I just leave them in there. Sorry, hopefully you couldn't hear me drinking right there. So yeah, I'll leave them in. All right, let's see what else. HVACR North. Dude, thanks very much, man. I really appreciate you guys are awesome with these super chats. Thank you very much. Okay. LSX mode. Did I go to school for heating and or air, or did I learn from a mentor? Okay, so I grew up working for my father. My father and I still work together to this day. We run the company together now. My dad is pretty much semi-retired. He doesn't really work in the field anymore. He's more office support. I think that if in a perfect world, he would retire tomorrow if he wanted to, but I don't think I would let him because I really don't want the stress of it all on my shoulders. I learned majority of of my knowledge from him, but I'll say the most important thing that I learned from my dad was the ability to troubleshoot something logically, to look at something mechanical and to understand how it works and be logical in the way that I diagnose things. Big picture diagnosis is something that I say all the time, okay? Look at the big picture, okay? Solve the problem, not the symptom. That's something that my dad taught me, okay? He didn't teach me that exact phrase, but I mean, he taught me that logic, okay? The problem-solving skills. My dad came up in the trade in the 80s, okay? And that was beer can cold era, okay? He went to trade school too, and they taught beer can cold. He survived most of his life in this trade with beer can cold methods, and I learned that way when I was coming up, but then I also learned, after a short time, like, hey, this didn't quite seem right. And I started doing my own research. So I'm not faulting my dad because he's a smart person. And majority of the old school technicians are the same way. And they're great guys. You can still learn a lot from them, even if they have those beer can cold methods, because there's still going to be some great information you can learn from those guys. After some time, I, kind of didn't really like the answer that I got to a couple things. Like when I would ask, hey, why do we do it this way? And they would just say, just because I said so. Yeah, I didn't really buy that one. I wasn't one person to listen to that kind of stuff. So started doing research on my own. I wasn't rude about it. And, just kind of came up with some answers. Doing a lot of research. Before then, internet wasn't really popular. So it was a lot of book research and, buying different books and just kind of reading. So I learned from my father. I also went to trade school. I also learned from my cousin. My cousin used to work for us too. Learned a lot from him also. And just kind of took a little bit of everything and mixed it all together. Also, coming up, one of the very first social media forums was HVAC-Talk. That was a huge forum for us guys. That was before Facebook. There's lots of great information still to this day. There's a lot of archived information. Now, I know a couple years back they lost their servers crashed and they lost a lot of information, but there's still some good stuff on there. They were able to recover some of it. HVAC Talk was a great resource before Facebook and different things became popular. And to this day, like I said, it's still a great resource. So that was the first social media that we had in this trade was HVAC Talk. And lots of guys getting together, just kind of like I'm answering your guys' question. It was the same thing. So, all right. Let's see what else. DJ Sub Air, thank you very much, man. I really appreciate it, man. You guys are awesome. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Are you guys... Let's see what else. I'm gonna... Sorry, I'm texting someone right now. I see some people saying some stuff about audio and different things in here, so I'm not getting them. Most of you guys aren't saying audio issues, so I don't think it's on my side because I've fixed my stream issues and different things. So hopefully it's just an intermittent issue with you guys. So, all right, let's see what else we got. Do I use a straight edge to align my indoor blower belts or laser alignment tool? Which do I prefer? I'm going to be honest with you, Z. I usually use my eyeball. I mean, that's just blunt and honest, okay? I've used a straight edge once or twice, but most of the time I don't have one with me, so I usually align it by eyeball and just kind of look at the belt and know how to tell, when it's correct or not. Is that absolutely correct? No, it is not. You should try to use a straight edge and or a laser alignment tool as much as possible, but I don't, so sorry. Damn, Nightbot posts everything all at once. That's funny, huh? All right. Yeah, exactly, Reefer Tech Mark. That's kind of my thought too. So on a tandem compressor system with a single burnout, do you swap both compressors or take the chance with the cleanup kit? Matthew Brown. So the factory is going to tell you to change both. If you have a burnout on a tandem system, the factory method is going to be to change both. I've seen people do just one, and but if you're going to do it proper, the best way is to do both. But like I said, I have seen people do it one with just one compressor. I do know of a system where one burnt out And to this day, the second compressor was never changed, and it's been 10 years and it's still running fine. So, it really depends on the severity of the burn and your ability to clean up the system properly. So let's see what else. Just bought the Field Piece probes. Thank you. And NorCal Dave, what is my take on them? I love the Field Piece probes, Frank Bradley. Definitely good. I like to use them with the Measure Quick app personally. Measure Quick is an amazing app, and I highly suggest checking that out if you aren't using it already. So, and Measure Quick also just released their refrigeration stuff on it too. So, what are my thoughts on 134A for a walk-in cooler? You came across one today, and it takes a very long time to reach set point after charging up, about 3 hours to drop 35 degrees. Dean Mohammed, something's going on there. Shouldn't take that long to drop in temperature. So yeah, something's funky there. I would look into that, okay? So on a 134A system, you want to make sure that it has the right expansion valve, that the system is sized for 134A. You can feel free to send me some emails, but when the box is getting close to being down to temperature, you should have a about 10 degrees evaporator superheat. Subcooling is not really going to be a metric that you're going to measure too much, okay? I would expect to see around anywhere from 5 to 3 degrees subcooling if you measure it coming out of the condenser before the receiver, but that is not a metric that you're going to use to charge the system, okay? When you have a sight glass and a receiver, clear the sight glass and really don't pay too much attention to subcooling so long as it doesn't start climbing really high, okay? Let's see what else. Really appreciate if you guys give the video a thumbs up. I see there's a lot of viewers in here. The likes, they're at about 63 right now. It really helps the stream to grow and for YouTube to recognize it, and that helps me, guys. So if you really, really would hit that thumbs up button. If you guys are watching on your phone, all you got to do is hit the back button, back out, so where the chat disappears, and then you can hit the thumbs up. Same thing on Android. And if you're on a computer, there's no excuse. Hit that thumbs up. I really appreciate it, guys, okay? It really helps out the stream. Any of the streams you guys are watching, just hit that thumbs up button. It really, really helps. What's my thoughts on companies drug testing? You feel it's super important. I've seen too many techs smoking weed while on the job. Ernesto. Okay. As a business owner, drug testing is very, very, very important. I've had many technicians in the past that have had drug problems. I shouldn't say many, maybe like 3. And I think that we gave them too many chances. A lot of times as a business owner, we tend to, let things go because it would put us in an awkward position to let someone go. But we have to look at it like this as a business owner. If that tech crashes his van on the way home and kills someone, our company is going to get sued for it. That tech doesn't have enough money to pay for the lawsuits. They're coming after us. Okay. Drug testing is very, very important. On top of that, forget about ruining our vans. You're going to hurt yourself, okay? I understand marijuana is legal. I live in California, okay? I can go buy marijuana down the street. It's not a big deal. Pot, whatever you want to call it. Do I have a problem with people smoking pot? No, I don't. Stellar Heating and Cooling, thank you very much. You guys with these super chats, you guys, awesome. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Okay, so, pot's a new thing. It's not new, but I mean, it's becoming legal, right? But it's still, you can't be smoking pot and coming to work. We are working on heavy machinery. We're driving vehicles. You cannot be intoxicated or impaired, okay? I realize that a lot of people think that they can smoke pot and it's no big deal, but it does affect your work, okay? It affects your judgment. It affects the way that you work. On your personal time, I got no problem. I am not judging you for smoking pot. No big deal. Okay. But it is very important that we as companies drug test. Insurance reasons. I don't care if pot is legal. My insurance company will not let me employ you if I do a drug test and find marijuana in your system while you're working for me. Period. I got to let you go. And that, it is what it is. Okay. So any kind of drug that can impair your ability, even prescription drugs, you got pain, you're hurt, you got a backache or whatever, and you're taking whatever pills, that can affect your judgment and impair your ability to do what we need to do. We work in dangerous environments. You can easily lose a finger on any given point, sticking your finger in some, mechanism that's moving. You can get hurt, and nobody wants you to get hurt. So don't let yourself get into that position. So, let's see what else. What am I missing here? Question here says, does the field piece gauge set I have the micron gauge built in, and how do they held up for me? Yes, my field piece manifold does have a micron gauge. Okay. I'm not a fan of using the micron gauge in my manifold. Okay. The wireless job link probes, those are the little wireless ones. They do not have micron gauges built into them, but the manifold itself does. I'm not a fan of using the manifold to pull a vacuum, but I'm going to be completely honest with you. There's some instances where I do. If I'm working on a really small prep table and it's really difficult to get in all my fancy vacuum gauges and all those weird hoses and all that stuff that I have, I will use a manifold. If I'm pulling on a small little system, I will use a manifold to pull down. So I do use the vacuum gauge every once in a while. Is it as accurate as possible? No, it's not. Whenever possible, I try to use a separate independent micron gauge and my True Blue vacuum hoses and or my Appion hoses, whichever ones, okay? But there's some instances where you can't. I'm going to tell you too. An instance where my micron gauge and my manifold really pays off is if I'm working on a walk-in cooler and I pumped down the receiver. If I pump down the receiver, guys, I'm going to tell you right now, if you're working on a refrigeration system that is pumped down, that means the refrigerant is stored in the receiver and you're just working on the low side of the system. You're not going to pull a perfect vacuum. All the valves in the system, the king valves that you close on the receiver, the service valves that you close on the compressor, they are not leak free. Okay, so you're not going to pull a perfect vacuum. So in that situation, I might just use my manifold to pull down because, you know, I can just hook everything up. Is it completely correct? No, but guys, I'm not perfect. Okay, so yes, I do use my manifold every once in a while to pull a micron gauge. I prefer not to, but I have. What you got to do to maintain it is just make sure that you're cleaning that sensor. So take some, I think they tell you to use some kind of special alcohol, pour it inside there, shake it up and pour it out a couple times. That's usually what I clean my micron gauges with. Okay. Follow the manufacturer's instructions on those on how to clean those properly. All right. Let's see what else. Contemplating getting field piece vacuum pump to replace your 20-year-old JB. Any advice? Mel 904. The only thing bad that I have to say about the field piece vacuum pump is that the only issue I've ever had with it is on the very bottom, the little rubber feet came off and it was a super easy fix. You just pop the rubber foot back on. That's the only thing. And it really has nothing to do with the vacuum pump. It's because I store it underneath the bottom shelf in my van. So I tend to drag it across the rubber floor. So the rubber foot gets stuck on the rubber floor and it pulled the rubber foot off. I love my field piece vacuum pump. Now, all fairness, I did not pay for my field piece vacuum pump. It was given to me from Field Piece because I traded them. I let them come onto a job site and take some photos while I was working. And in payment for that, them coming out and me letting them take those photos, they gave me the vacuum pump. Okay. So I did not physically take my money and buy that vacuum pump, but if I have used the JB 6 CFM pumps for years. All of my technicians have the JB 6 CFM pumps that are provided by my company. If one of those failed today, then yes, I would go ahead and give them the Field Piece vacuum pump as their replacement. It is a little bit more expensive if I remember right. I think it's like $400 or $500, but it's definitely worth it. The oil change alone on that Field Piece vacuum pump, and it holds a lot less oil too. It's really awesome. But I've used the JB pumps for years before that. They've been my go-to pump for years and they've lasted forever. So as a pump fails, yeah, I'll give them the new Field Piece pump, and it's a great pump. Definitely suggest you guys consider buying that if you haven't already. So let's see what else. Guys, I think I'm missing a lot of stuff in there. So if I missed your guys' stuff, definitely post it in caps lock again, throw it in there and I'll try to get to it. Let's see what else I'm missing here. What do I think of the UEI multimeters? Oscar Palma. So a lot of people have recommended the UEI multimeters. I honestly have never used one myself. I won from HVAC Shop Talk a couple years back. I won a DL429 and I ended up giving it to one of my service technicians. The meter itself is a really great meter. It has some cool features in it, but I will say I never really dug into it myself, but it did go through batteries quite often. That is one complaint that my service tech that I gave it to had about it, and he has since stopped using that and uses it for his backup meter. Now, I don't know if there was a setting in it or whatever. I never really went through it myself. But yeah, it just went through a lot of batteries, but it's a really cool meter and a lot of guys swear by it. So I really have nothing else bad to say about it. A lot of people think it's a really great meter. I myself am a Field Piece SC660 is what I use for my meter. It's the field piece fully loaded one with the phase rotation and all that fancy stuff. It's a giant meter. It fits in my Vito backpack. That's my meter that I use every day for my go-to. So I'm a field piece fanboy myself. So if I was to buy a meter today, I'd probably buy another field piece. But I will say, I even have my bench meter. I'm a Fluke fan. When I have a Fluke meter, I have a Fluke 902. I think it's like an FC or something like that as my backup meter that sits in my van too. But I just like the field piece one because it has the phase rotation. So, all right, let's see what Mr. Johnny Boy. See you later, bud. Do I do a lot of installs, Frank Bradley? No, I don't really do installs. I mean, I just do some retrofits on the restaurants that I work on, but I really don't do a lot of new installs for sure. No. So, let's see. Ernesto, you asked if I'll make stickers for the fans. You know, guys, I'm going to be honest with you. I might make stickers. The whole shirts and stickers and whatever thing, I really got burnt out on it when I started realizing how difficult it was to get rid of everything, you know, and to try to distribute it to everybody. I was trying to sell the shirts at first, and it was just a pain in the ass. So, yeah, I might work on the stickers. Zach, thank you very much, man. Really appreciate it. You know, I might do stickers or something like that, but I'm just going to be honest with you guys. It's really not my priority. So Ernesto, I will probably do something. It's just not something that and I probably need to make it a priority because a lot of people have been asking me. It's just one of those things like I just need to focus on the videos. But yeah, I'll figure something out and we'll do something with stickers and stuff. Zach, thank you very much, man, for that super chat. That was really awesome. Really, really appreciate it. What do I think of the Navac vacuum pump? So Fluke 196. Little Birdie told me a secret, and it's been confirmed by everybody else. Navac makes the field piece vacuum pump, guys. If you like the field piece vacuum pump, kind of the same thing as the Navac, okay? Navac makes some, I've never used, well, I should take that back. I do have one Navac pump. I have the Navac battery-operated little pump, that little one that holds the small little battery thing. I've only used it for a few little things, but it's kind of cool when you don't want to take a extension cord up on the roof. I used it to vacuum down a system that had a major refrigerant leak that I just needed to get the air out of it, you know. But yeah, Navac pumps, I've heard nothing but good things about them, guys. So I would, you know, Navac I think is definitely a contender out there. I'm a fan of that field piece pump, but I guess I would consider a Navac pump too. So definitely. Okay, let's see. Would I replace a 2-ton condensing unit with a pre-existing 1/4 inch liquid line? Thanks. Keep up the good work. Oh, so you're saying, would I put a new 2-ton unit on there with the existing 1/4 inch liquid line? Probably not, especially with 410A, right? Because I would assume that the 410A needs a bigger liquid line. So if you're going from an R22 system to a 410A system, I don't know if, you know, you need to do some calculations to find out if that liquid line's big enough. You might be running into a problem there, bud. So you might need to go a different route, mini split or something like that. So, all right. Do I plan to do less and less as the company grows? Frank Bradley. No, Frank, I love working. My particular company is really not growing that much. Okay. We limit the growth very much. Okay. We're 4 technicians, right? Myself. Yeah, we have 4 technicians, so 3 guys that are on call and 1 guy that handles maintenances and different things. So I don't have intentions of growing that leaps and bounds. That's not. I'm more concerned about my customers and providing quality service and my reputation than I am about this company growing. You know, don't get me wrong. I need to make more money and different things like that, but I'm very, very concerned about my reputation and the customers being happy with me. When you grow, that stuff goes down. Unfortunately, it is what it is. There's no way you can control everybody. So realistically, I don't see myself ever getting bigger than 6 technicians. We're just a small service company and we're just happy with where we're at and we're just maintaining what we have. So, but no, even if I grew to the 6 technicians, I love to work. I would rather hire someone to do the office work and me do the field work. I love working, guys. That's my passion. My passion is fixing things and dealing and interacting with customers and solving problems. I honestly hate working in the office. I hate sitting there and just doing paperwork. That's just the bane of my existence. Doing warranty work, oh my gosh, that just drives me nuts. Warranty paperwork, the end of the world. Hate it. All right, let's see what else. What would be my course of action if a customer service insisted that the liquid line filter not be put in with the new unit install? I would simply just document it on the invoice and make them sign off on it if they don't want to pay for a liquid line dryer. And I probably wouldn't do work for that customer anymore either because they're a cheap ass. So, all right, I'm going to go through my list of stuff here. So I talked about the R22. I'm just going to cover it again. R22 is not going to be illegal to use anymore, okay? R22, there's a ban basically on it, and that simply states that we cannot import it into the United States and that we cannot manufacture it anymore. But there's thousands upon thousands of pounds in storage of reclaimed and or new refrigerant that is going to be available for years to come. So R22 is not illegal. Don't believe the hype of what people are saying. It will not be illegal to put R22 in a system come January 1st, 2020. Okay. Next thing. Okay. So, I had talked about Bill, Curious HVAC guy. So him and I have a discussion going back and forth. And I want to say this is one of the cool things that comes from YouTube. Bill put out a video and it's an awesome video, guys. I suggest you go watch it. That's Curious HVAC guy. And it's a compressor murder. And I think it's a 3-part video. Okay. Look on his channel. You guys will find it. You can't miss it. Bill, you also do some great thumbnails for your videos, dude. Great thumbnails. So Bill had put up a video and I politely emailed him and just said, hey, I kind of saw that you did this and I bet you have this problem. And we kind of discussed things back and forth. I was not being a dick to him. He was not being rude to me. We were just having a conversation. It was a really great back and forth about why I do things the way that I do them. So that brings me to the topic that I want to talk about. Bill did a great job. His diagnosis was spot on. There's nothing that he did wrong. Okay. But his first video, I kind of in my head when I was watching him change the compressor, and you guys got to go watch it. I'm not going to give away all the details, but you got to watch it. When he changed the compressor, I immediately thought in my head, oh boy, if I was doing this job, I would have done this and this and this. And it's not that he did anything wrong. Again, I'm not saying that he did anything wrong. Okay. It's that from personal experience, I've ran into these issues before where one thing leads to another. So he came up on a video, and again, I'm not going to give everything away, but he had a severe burnout and some really funky issues about his. And I was in my head, it was screaming, oh my gosh, you're going to run into this problem. And he kind of ran into some of them, not everything that I said he was going to run into. The reason why I bring this up is from experience, I've seen some weird things happen. And this is something that is good for me as a company owner, but then also bad for me as a company owner, because I tend to approach problems thinking of the extreme worst case scenario. So there's times where I submit quotes for a system that has a compressor burnout or different things. And when I do a compressor burnout, plain and simple, if it has an expansion valve, it's being replaced. I'm putting on a liquid line filter dryer with a high acid core. I'm putting on a suction line filter dryer with a high acid core. I might run an acid neutralizer through the system. I might cut the evaporator out, blow it out with nitrogen. There's a lot of different things. I'm going to change the compressor contactor. I'm going to put a new crankcase heater. I'm going to do all that different stuff. Now, was the compressor contactor for sure bad? No, not necessarily. Was the TXV for sure bad? No, not necessarily. But from experience with things like that, I'm going to quote all that stuff on that change out. So where it's bad for me as a company owner is sometimes I lose out on jobs because I'm going to look at the worst case scenario and go ahead and quote this job for that. Now, if it's a customer that I know and they trust me, I might go up to them and say, hey, look, we need to do this. We might run into these problems. And they may say, yeah, let's do the minimum and then address it. But if it's a new customer, I'm going to go in there and blanket quote this thing and just quote everything. Okay. So sometimes I lose out on that kind of stuff because, the next guy comes in and lowballs me, but then runs into all these different problems or whatever, So, that's just one of the cool things. But I do have to say that Bill and I had a cool back and forth email that was a very productive email with us discussing things. If you guys watch anybody's YouTube videos and you guys have some criticism or constructive criticism or comments or different things, I highly suggest you email that person or put a comment on the thing, but don't be a dick about it. Don't be rude. Be polite and just say, hey, look, you know what? I ran into this problem and this is what I ran into. And then you guys can have a cool discussion. And that's one of the cool things about this YouTube community is, sometimes we can have good correspondence back and forth and it's really cool. So, all right, let's see what else. Yeah, sometimes I'll do flush. It just depends. So what do I do when doing a preventative maintenance in the fall? Grill it. You're segueing me into the next thing that I want to cover, Trevor. So I had posted in the very beginning of this live stream that I did my first no heating call today. Okay. And it was 100 degrees outside and I was working on a heater. The heater has a bad induced draft motor, and the spark igniter or the electrode was dirty and it wasn't sparking in the right spot because it had some carbon built up on it or something like that. So when we're doing our preventative maintenances, when and if possible, it's not always possible, but right now we're kind of slowing down a little bit. We're still getting some no cooling calls, and we always have refrigeration calls, but we're kind of slowing down. We have a couple preventative maintenances. We don't have a lot of them like we used to in the previous years, but what we're trying to do is we're trying to look forward. So we look at our restaurants and we say, hey, look, this restaurant is not going to have another preventative maintenance for 3 months. That's going to put us right in the heating season. So what we do is, in August and September with those particular restaurants, we're checking the heaters. So we're firing up the heaters. We're burning off the crap. We're checking out the electrical components. We're cleaning out the combustion compartments as much as possible. And we're checking compressor contactors, making sure that there's no voltage drops across them, things like that. Now, my customers, it just depends on what your customer is willing to pay. So my customers right now aren't willing to pay for, combustion air checks, which I don't have a combustion meter to even do one of those. But, they don't even want to pay for us checking gas pressures or anything like that. Most of the time, our customers just want us to make sure that the heater fires up, that the flame doesn't look funny, that the heat exchanger doesn't have any giant holes in it, and then they want us to walk away, until there becomes a problem. So it really depends on what your customer is willing to pay for and the kind of preventative maintenance that they had set up. But I had another technician at one of our restaurants, and I had him check the heaters. He just went out there and jumped them all out and fired them up, and we had 2 of them that weren't working. So one of them, I went back there today. I couldn't find anything wrong with it. It fired up just fine. The second one had the electrode was, had carbon built up on it. So I cleaned it off, and then I'm going to go ahead and recommend that they replace the inducer motor because it has just like a funky wobble in it, and it's just a weird sound. Other than that, I was able to get the heater to fire up once I cleaned the electrode. I'd probably go ahead and recommend that we change the flame sensor on the electrode on that. So when I quote it, I'll go ahead and change the induced draft motor, the wheel, the gasket. It's a carrier gas pack. So the gasket that goes behind it, and then the electrode and the flame sensor is what I'm going to quote for. So a lot of times when we're doing heating repairs, we tend to change like the electrode and the flame sensor together. It's just one of those things where I'd rather not go in there with a $60 electrode and then find out there's a problem with the flame sensor too. So all right. What's my thoughts, Redo, on working on hydrocarbon equipment? Okay, so we have a lot of hydrocarbon. Hydrocarbon is propane, guys. That's the most common hydrocarbon we're going to work on. Isobutane is another one that we're running into too. It's very popular in the restaurant industry right now. Pretty much every new refrigerator out there that's coming out that is sold to the restaurants these days is going to be either propane or R290, which is the same thing, and or isobutane. I haven't run into the butane stuff. On the domestic refrigerators, you're going to see the isobutane, but on the restaurant refrigerators, you're going to see the propane for the most part. I don't have any problems with it. There's some safety things that you need to follow. It's basically still the same refrigerant practices. One of the big issues that you need to do is when you're brazing on the system, you need to purge and sweep the system with nitrogen before you start brazing on it. And then you need to be purging with nitrogen as you're brazing too. What you're going to find on the hydrocarbon and or R290 systems or even the isobutane systems is that there's going to be little pockets of flammable vapor still left in that system. So I've even demonstrated, I have 2 videos with R290 refrigerant where I'm changing a compressor on one and a pressure control on another. On both of those videos, I showed that even though I purged and swept the system with nitrogen, as I'm brazing, there's still flame outs coming out of the system because there's still little pockets of flammable vapor in the system. On the compressor changeout, I had the compressor completely taken out of the system. So there's no oil for that vapor to be boiling out of. And I still, when I went to go unbraze the dryer, I had a flame out from the dryer too. So there's some oil and some flammable refrigerant vapor stuck in the dryer. You just need to make sure that you follow proper refrigeration practices. That's the biggest thing, okay? So I have a couple videos on it. True Manufacturing has some videos on it. Delfield has some videos. RSCS, which I'm a very big supporter of, and I'm an active member of my local chapter. We also have some training resources also, but you do have to be a member to watch those resources. So, all right. Let's see what else. Do I use acid away on compressor burnouts? Now, personally, I'm not an acid away fan, but that's more of a recent thing. Ever since I heard the podcast with John Pastorello from Refrigeration Technologies on Brian Orr's HVACR school, I've really been turned away from using any kind of additives in the system, but I have used them for most of my career before and never really ran into any problems. It's just been a new thing where I don't really want to be using any neutralizers in the system. So lately, purge with nitrogen, put a liquid line filter dryer, high acid core in there. So if you're using a Sporlan, use the HH liquid line dryer. Okay, so whatever size it is in an HH, and then the same thing with a suction line filter dryer. Make sure it's an HH core. That's a high acid core. Usually, I think it has carbon or something built into the core. So, and that will help to clean up your system. And then you're going to repeatedly need to do dryer changes. Basically, go back out there, check the pressure and or temperature drop across the dryer. If it's anything more than 3 psi or 3 degrees, it's time to change the dryer and move on to another one. Put it back into the system. Another thing that I would highly suggest you do is if you have a burnout system, you need to oversize your dryers. So that was one thing that I discussed with Bill. It was just a nice discussion. He didn't do anything wrong, but I just told him, hey, when I'm doing a compressor burnout, I highly suggest that you go back in with an oversized liquid line and or suction line filter dryer just to eliminate any problems there. It's not the end of the world if you have to take a dryer that has bigger line sizes and put bushings on it to make it go down to a smaller size, okay? So I'm a big fan of putting a bigger filter dryer on the system and just cleaning the system, pulling a good vacuum on it. That's my acid protocol when I have an acid or a burnout. So the connected LTD, what's my service charge, or what's my guy's charge per hour in service calls? Unfortunately, I'm not going to list that on a live stream. I can tell you that the average hourly wage in Southern California for a restaurant refrigeration company is anywhere from $85 an hour to about $115 an hour, but I'm not going to tell you where I'm at in that swing. But that's a very common hourly wage that we're charging the customers for here in Southern California. As far as service technicians' wages, it really is dependent on your abilities and your skills. Service technicians can make anywhere from, as an apprentice, $17, $18 an hour. And a journeyman is anywhere from $35 to $45 an hour, and the sky's the limit once your abilities. Once you get in, and that's just the light commercial refrigeration. Once you get into the industrial stuff, your wages can go up a lot higher. So, have I used the Parker Zoom Lock refrigerant fittings? What do I think of them? Dylan's Tech. So no, I have not used the Parker Sporlan Zoom Lock. I've actually been in contact with Parker Sporlan, and they are going to loan me one just to go ahead and try to use it out, just because I want to be able to say that I used one. Honestly, in the restaurant refrigeration side, I don't have a lot of uses for it, but there's been a few times where I thought maybe, hey, that might work out really cool. So I'm going to try it and see, and I'll let you guys know. I'm going to be honest about it, but no, I have not used it up until this point. So I do definitely see some uses for it, but I know that if you're using any of the Parker Sporlan, sorry, I can't speak correctly, Zoom Lock tools, the biggest thing is following their installation practices. You cannot skimp. You have to make sure that you're following their practices to a T for their system to work properly. So let's see. What's my thoughts on hydro? Okay, I already covered that. Let's see what else. Dallas, thank you very much, man. Super chat is awesome. You guys are awesome with these super chats, man. It is really, really cool. Thank you. Thank you. Knock it off. Cover your ass. Yeah, I got you, man. It's just my personal preference not using the acid away, but I'm going to say that's a new thing. I've used acid away for years and never ran into a problem. So I've just chosen to not use it lately, but I have many systems out there running to this day that have acid away in them that I've never had issues with. So, all right. I want to cover some other stuff that I have on my list right here. Great question that I had today. Someone had asked me, and I'm not going to list his name because it's more of a kind of a confidential question, but he said, look, he's super busy at work right now. And he wanted to know, as a business owner, how he should approach the boss, because he's been working way too much overtime. Okay. I think he might've said 13, 14-hour days every single day for a couple months now. Okay. Yes, we do get busy in the summertime. Yes, it is expected that service techs do work some extra hours in the summertime, but you as service technicians need to know your limits. You need to know when you're going to lose interest, when you're going to break down. Your health is the most important thing. You as a service technician need to think about your health first and the company second. Okay? Your family comes first and the company second. Now, I'm not saying to go skimp out because, oh, you got to go do this little school function or something like that. I mean, you need to also let them be upfront and be honest with the company. But if you feel like you're overworked, you need to say something. You don't need to be a dick about it. Just be polite and say, hey, look, you know what? I'm burnt out. I can't work these hours anymore. My family life is going down the hill. My wife is getting frustrated. My kids don't know who I am. You need to say something, okay? There's different aspects to this trade that are more demanding. I lately have been really, really focused on family and haven't been wanting to work those crazy hours. I've done them in the past where you work those, 70-hour work weeks, like insane ones, right? It's not worth it to me anymore. Okay. If someone asked me if I wanted to go work for a company that I was going to work 70 hours a week, I'd say no. There's no way in hell, because family life is more important to me than work. Okay. All that money that you're going to make, you don't get to take it with you when you die. Okay. Your family is the experiences that you have. So focus on your family, consider the company, but at the same time, you need to think about yourself first. Okay. So don't be rude about it, but just talk to your boss. Just say, hey, look, dude, this is too much. We got to figure something out. And maybe he'll have a conversation with you and say, look, man, we're really swamped. I can't find anybody, and you guys can have a back and forth. But there's got to be something. You need to take some time for yourself, okay? So remember that your health and your sanity comes first, okay? I know this from experience as a business owner. I've done a series where I kind of talked about my personal crap with my wife. I don't remember the name of the series right now. It's How We Live the HVACR Life. In fact, I think I still owe you guys one more episode on that. But I talked about my mental struggles and how I couldn't let it go, and anxiety and depression and all that different thing. And a lot of it was because I put work first and I didn't put myself first. Okay. Yourself first, work second. Well, actually your family goes and then work comes in there too. Okay. So do what's best for you and your family. Talk to your boss. Okay. Just be polite about it. Don't be a dick. So, all right, let's see what else. What you learn is the most important thing is not to burn out, because after that, you will not care about doing a good job at work. That is correct, Ernesto. That's HVACR Vlogger that said that. So, do you actually use that charging cylinder in the background, Larry Monday? No, but that is a charging cylinder that one of my employees. I have never used a dial-a-charge. That's what that is right there. You could incrementally look at the liquid level inside of it and follow the gradient on the side and figure out the proper charge for a system. That was basically before we had super accurate scales. We could use a dial-a-charge to weigh in the factory charge into a system. So no, I have never used the dial-a-charge. One of my employees gave it to me, and it was a really, really cool little find. I have used that hermetic compressor analyzer up there. That was my hermetic compressor analyzer. I don't use it anymore. That hermetic compressor analyzer in the bottom right-hand corner was given to me by one of my employees. And that Simpson meter up there was my father's. So I did not use that either. That Fluke meter is my bench meter that I haven't been using very much, but that's just my little office meter. And then I also have a, I can't think of that duct measurement tool, what it's called right there, but it's basically for balancing out and measuring supply air CFMs on a register, but I can't think of the name of it right now. Yeah. All right. So something else that I want to talk about real quick is some things that I'm going to be doing soon. Okay. I've posted on social media a little bit about me cutting up parts and doing different things. So some cool things that I've done. I basically reached out to Sporlan, and I started cutting up some parts first, and then Sporlan saw them, and I've showed them before. I'll show them again real quick. I have a head pressure control valve that I plan on using in some videos that I cut open using my bandsaw. And then I have an expansion valve. Again, I know I've showed these before, guys. I've had an expansion valve that I cut up to where you can see the internal working so I can show my employees. And then I have a liquid line solenoid valve. I plan on doing some videos with these soon. I'm just still trying to figure out how I'm going to do it. The next in my list of things that I cut up was a discharge bypass valve. Okay. I personally do not work on systems that have discharge bypass valves, but this is a discharge bypass valve. One of the cool things about it is it works very similarly as far as the stepper motor goes to a electronic expansion valve. And one of the cool things that I was able to do is reach out to Sporlan and get their SMA12, which is their stepper motor controller, essentially. So I'm able to take this right now. You guys aren't going to be able to see it, but that valve is currently closing. So I'm able to take this and show the action of how an expansion valve works, how it opens and closes. Now, again, this is a discharge bypass valve. It's different than an expansion valve, but the stepper motor concept still works the same. So I'm working on cutting up some other parts. In preference, this is another discharge bypass valve, but this one actually uses a solenoid coil and you set the pressure manually, okay? So I haven't been able to cut this one up yet, but I'm working on cutting them up. One of the cool ones, though, that I've been working on is, and this one's a little bit more difficult to show, but I'm going to show it in some videos, is a crankcase pressure regulator. So I was able to take a crankcase pressure regulator, okay? You guys have probably seen them before. They usually have stubs coming out the side, okay? This one right here is another pressure regulator. It's actually not a crankcase pressure regulator, but it works off of the same concept. But I'm working on some videos where I can show the inner workings of these using a bellows and how they can take spring pressure. So this is a CPR valve or a CRO valve. And you can basically reduce the suction pressure going back to a compressor. So I'm working on some little videos where I'm going to show this kind of stuff for you guys. I'm just, just trying to do things in my off time, working on those things. I've been really going at it with my bandsaw. Cutting this stuff up. So, all right. Sorry about all that noise there. Let's see what else we got going on in the chat. Yeah, you cut your sandwich in half there, Dallas. Good for you, man. All right. Let's see. Yeah, cut the sensing bulb. I might do that. So, all right. Let's see what else. Okay, gentlemen. Let's see throw some more questions in here, and I'll definitely try to get to them, guys. Let's see if I'm missing anything that happened a while back here. Don't see. I'm not going to go too far back in the chat. So, typical back pressure and superheat on an R404A system. Frank Bradley asked me. Okay. So what I want you to do, Frank, it's so much easier to not worry about the pressure and worry about the temperature. What are you working on? Are you working on a walk-in cooler? Your suction saturation temperature typically on a walk-in cooler is going to be 10 degrees below the box temperature, okay? So you can basically look at your evaporator pressure, follow the corresponding temperature over, and think that if your box temp is at 40 degrees, your saturation temp should be somewhere around 30 degrees. It's easier to look at saturation temperatures when you're working on air conditioning and refrigeration systems, okay? Keep that in mind. So on a 404A system, I'm typically going to want about a 10 degree evaporator TD on a medium temp walk-in cooler. I'm typically going to want about 10 degrees of superheat, evaporator superheat. And if you know your box temp of, let's say, 35 degrees, then you know that your running suction saturation temperature should be approximately 10 degrees below that. So you should be running approximately a 25 degree suction saturation temperature on a 404A system. So let's not focus. It's so much easier if you can just grasp the concept of saturation temperatures and not so much worry about the pressure. Now, once you understand that the pressure and the temperature, they correspond to each other, but it's harder for me to remember a pressure and just to understand that on a walk-in cooler, I typically want to run 10 degrees below box temp. It's easier for me to remember that because that can apply to any different refrigerant, and you don't have to so much remember the refrigerant pressures as much as you just know the temperature at which the system's going to run. Same thing on an air conditioner. On average, you're going to run about a 35 degree evaporator TD on an air conditioning system. And if you know you want to maintain this temperature, then you know that your suction saturation temperature should be approximately 35 degrees below whatever the room temperature is. So it's easier to remember that kind of stuff. If you can remember your average rule of thumb temperature TDs, okay? Same thing goes for a TD on a walk-in freezer, typically about 10 degrees. Your suction superheat or your evaporator superheat on a walk-in freezer might run a little bit lower, usually 6 to 8 degrees, but your TD is still about 10 degrees. So whatever box temp you want to maintain, your suction saturation temperature of your refrigerant should be about 10 degrees below that. So hopefully that helps you a little bit. All right. Just Russ, thank you very much. Okay, so you said Curious HVAC's guys video number 3. Do I think in those circumstances that oil could be forever trapped in the condenser? Oh, for sure, Just Russ. If you have a crazy burnout like that, there's definitely going to be oil that you can't get out of the system. And that's why I kind of agree that leaving in the liquid line filter dryer, the high acid one, and also leaving in the suction line filter dryer, because it's going to take a long time for all the crap that's in that system and the oil that's in that system to work its way through. So for sure. Let's see what else. train unit. Original was a A.O. Smith, but office ordered a new motor and got the first one. Oh, because I think you're asking a question there. Why would a compressor go to ground when the unit is just 2 years old? Oscar, compressors don't go bad by themselves. I'm going to tell you that right now. Okay. Compressors, as Bill said, compressors are murdered. Okay. Because his video was compressor murder. That's a common phrase. So why would a compressor go to ground? There's so many different reasons as to why. Oil return, low superheat. There's so many different factors. High condensing temps. There's so many different issues. Unfortunately, with a bad compressor, you got to change the compressor, follow all the proper procedures, and then diagnose what happened. Okay. It could be something as simple as a TXV going bad. And that's why, because the fact that we got to go in there and change the compressor first, that's why I'll make educated guesses and say, if I'm going to change a ground and compressor, I'm going to change the expansion valve. I'm going to install a liquid line and suction line filter dryer with high acid cores. I'm going to purge the system with nitrogen, and I'm going to pull a super deep vacuum. Okay. We're not going to be doing a pump down. We're going to go ahead and recover all the refrigerant and properly go through everything. But there's so many different reasons as to why a compressor goes bad, but they don't do that on their own typically. Okay. There's usually something that caused it. Do I install low ambient equipment on ACs this time of year? Trevor, unfortunately here in Southern California, we don't have low ambient conditions. Okay. So no, if I'm working on a server room, maybe we might put a fan cycle control, but that's about it. We have very mild winters. Our extreme low for like 2-3 days of the year, we might hit 30 degrees here in Southern California. Our average wintertime temperature is about 50 degrees. And so we don't really get cold enough to have low ambient stuff on our equipment for the most part. Let's see what else. All right. I really appreciate you guys coming in here. I am going to go ahead and wrap this one up. Any questions that you guys have? Hey, I never saw it. Did anybody guess the movie where I was putting the quotes in there? I don't know if anybody saw it yet or not. There was Nightbot quotes in there. I was just curious if anybody guessed the movie. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Really appreciate you guys coming in. Any questions that you guys have, send me an email to hvacrvideos@gmail.com. Do me a favor and leave me comments. If you guys have feedback, good or bad, I'm always willing to hear criticism. If you guys think I could do something better, let me know how you would have done it differently, okay? Really appreciate it. And I'm going to go ahead and transition on out of this. And let's go ahead and turn that off, turn that on, and transition on over. And guys, we will catch you. Yeah, you guys are right. It was Step Brothers. Yep. All right. I'm going to go ahead and transition on over, and we will catch you guys on the next one, okay?